Hi everyone. Right, well, I've just come back from the garden centre with my daughter, with one of my daughters who's moving into a new house with a garden next Friday. And we were going round and she was saying, oh, I want my garden to look like yours, Mum. It's sort of very informal, cottage gardening. So will this plant do? And will that plant do? So on the way back, she said, you know, you should do a video for new gardeners who perhaps don't know what they're doing or they haven't got the time to sort of fuss over their garden. Um, just really easy plants that will give you this look. So if you like this kind of border, then I would say it's worth your while watching this video. So I've gone quickly around the garden and I have got 17 of the easiest plants that you'll ever grow. They don't take any looking after at all. I can guarantee you will have a beautiful cottage garden style border if you plant these plants. So first of all, we'll go out onto the front of my garden and I'll show you some of the plants there. So this is my front border, very low maintenance, very cottage gardeny. So this is the first plant, and this one is called Alchemilla Mollis. It's been flowering now for about, I would say, a month. Prolific self-seeder, so if you buy some of this, pop it in, the next year it will have self-seeded all the way along your border and it's beautiful. And when this is the flower here, when this is finished, you just cut it down to the bottom and you'll get a beautiful mound of these beautiful leaves. And when you go out in the morning and the morning dew's on them, oh, here, have a look at this. I mean, this is the end of the day. Can you see how it collects any moisture? So that's a great one. The next one is this one, which is called Linaria. Again, prolific self-seeder. Gives you lots of nice height in your cottage garden border. And you do nothing with this except, again, cut it back when it's finished flowering. You'll get weeks and weeks of this beautiful purple colour. I have got some in my garden which is a pale pink and which is lovely. Yeah, when it's finished you just cut that down and that's finished. And then if you can see in amongst it, this beautiful orange plant. So oranges and purples and yellows and purples look beautiful together. Oh, it's a lovely little bee. All of these plants I'm showing you, the pollinators love them. So this orange plant here is called Geum, and this one is called Totally Tangerine. Geums come in all colours and sizes. Totally Tangerine is a really nice tall one, and that will come back year after year. And as we go around my garden, you might see lots of plants that you think, oh, that's lovely. But I may not mention them because I don't think they're particularly easy to look after. You can't just leave them to get on with it. So that's why I'm not mentioning some. This plant here, Valerian, that lovely deep pop of pink, I've got a lovely big clump of it up here. So this plant here is called Valerian. Some people regard it as a weed and they don't like it in their garden. But when you look down the border, it's giving a real pop of pink colour early in the year. So all of the plants that I'm mentioning today are ones that will give you a pop of colour in June. There's lots more plants in my garden where if you come back next month, I'll have a different selection for you. So Valerian is excellent. When the flowers finish, you cut it right back down to the bottom. It will then grow again, not quite as tall, and it will flower again. And if you look along the border, you'll see that there's sort of repetition all the time. I've got the Valerians down there, the Alchemilla Mollis is down there, and then the Alchemilla Mollis is up here. So this is that lovely Valerian. You can see it spills forward. In amongst it is Campanula. That's a low-growing purple Campanula, and that looks beautiful in there. Any type of Campanula is really easy maintenance. So this is another Campanula, a lovely white one. And then if we come on to daisies, these daisies here are beautiful, and these are Shasta daisies. So I grew one packet of seeds about 5 years ago, got, I don't know, 40 Shasta daisy plants, put them throughout the garden, and I've never planted another Shasta daisy since. They just self-seed. The original clump may come back, but what you'll find is, and this is why they're great for cottage garden borders, is they just self-seed in amongst all the other plants, and it gives you that informal mix. Now this clump of daisies behind here, behind the Shasta daisy, is another fabulous one, and this is oxeye daisy, and this one is a much sturdier daisy than this one. The Shasta daisies do tend to flop all over. Then we've got more of this Linaria. You see the repetition, more Campanula, the Valerian, and then this patch of oxeye daisies is really just about to open up. So I'm going to class the Shasta daisy and the oxeye daisy as one grouping in my list, because they're both a white petal daisy with a yellow flower, and either one would add to your border. I like to have both because the Shasta daisy in my garden tends to flower sooner than the oxeye, so it just sort of prolongs that pop of white and yellow. And then down here I've got the Geum there, then I've planted another little piece there, then I've planted another little piece there. So as it sort of helps the eye go along any border, and you're going sort of this beautiful chartreuse colour, and then orange and purple and pink, and then back to chartreuse again. Right, so we'll go inside the garden now. So this is a very good example of what I mean by Shasta daisy self-seeding. So all of this daisy here has self-seeded, and if I'd tried to sort of plant that out like that, it wouldn't have looked as good. Nature does the best job. See, it's self-seeded here, it's self-seeded on the edge of borders, which I like, and it does flop forward, but the most you have to do is get a pair of scissors and cut it off if it gets in your way. It's just such a lovely fresh pop of white and yellow at this time of year, and it looks lovely against those iris there. So that's low maintenance. Now these iris are Dutch iris, and they are so easy to grow. So you'll find them in your supermarkets. In the autumn they'll have packets of these, usually sell about 5 or 7 bulbs at a time, really reasonable. And what I did last year was I had a big clump of this Dutch iris going along here, the front of the border, but it was nowhere else in the garden, and I thought, you know, that looks gorgeous. I'm going to split that clump. Again, I'll show you how to do that in the autumn. You split the clump and you can dot that around, which costs you nothing because you're splitting what you've already got, or you could just get more Dutch iris. And I dotted it through the garden, so I've got clumps all over now. So I've got a clump developing there, and then I've got a clump right up there, big clump there. As I say, they're just sort of going over in my garden now there, that big clump. Dutch iris are brilliant for my garden because they take up no space. And you can see this is growing underneath a big ornamental cherry tree. So this is quite shady here. This is what I call my woodland garden. But they're growing in semi-shade. Now these Dutch iris are different from bearded iris, which are these ones. So don't get them mixed up, because these are higher maintenance in that they grow from rhizomes. Can you see down? Oops. Let's have a look at what we're looking at there. That gnarly thing at the bottom is a rhizome, and that needs to bake. It needs to lie on the top of your soil and bake in the sun. And then they take up quite a lot of room, but they're spectacular and I wouldn't be without them. But this video is all about easy maintenance plants for you when you're not quite sure what plants are what, or what you've got to do with them. So I would say get these ones, the Dutch iris. And it comes straight up from the bottom. Can you see? It doesn't take up any room. It just goes straight up. Flowers its little heart out. And then when they're finished flowering, all this, you chop the head off when it goes over. You let this stem, it just looks like a big blade of grass then. You let that stem go all yellow, and then you cut it off at the bottom, probably about end of July then. Right, if you follow me, I'll show you these plants, which are poppies. And I would say that any type of poppy you buy, it will look beautiful in the cottage garden border that you're developing. These are Oriental poppies. This one here is a perennial one. It comes back in the same spot every year. This is another poppy here that's about to open, but a completely different leaf. What else have we got? So I'll start off with alliums. I love all different types of alliums. You can get them different colours, purples, whites. That's a different type of allium from that one. And they're nice and tall. This is what they're like when they're just starting to come out there. So you buy them in packets. You can get them in supermarkets, garden centres. You can order them online. They come as a bulb. You plant them in the autumn, and then the following year this happens. In my garden it's in June. So I live up in the northeast of England, and my garden has lots of big tall trees that cast lots of shade. So if this garden was sunnier, I would have more flowers flowering. But I'm just showing you plants that grow in my garden that just look after themselves basically. But that's the sort of pop of colour that you would get in this border. So if those alliums weren't there, that border would just look very green. So that's good. I'm concentrating at the moment on plants that I would suggest you get if you're a new gardener and you just want to fill a border up quickly so that you get a cottage garden effect. So this is another one. Really easy. This is a perennial, and it's Nepeta or catmint. And that's lovely. Another easy plant. You pop it in, it flowers all summer long for you. If it gets too straggly, you chop it down a bit and it'll repeat flower. And then in the autumn, you can just cut it down to the bottom and it comes back next year. This is a true geranium, and I've got lots of these around the garden. A true cottage garden plant. That's quite a nice clump there. You can see that's quite a large water butt there. That must be about 4 foot tall. So you can see the sort of clump you get with a true geranium in the garden. They are so easy to look after. So again, it's flowering now in June. They're not fussy about soil type. They're not fussy They'll flower for you in part shade or brilliant sunshine. If they're in brilliant sunshine, the flower doesn't last as long. But when the flower's finished on this one, I will cut it right back down to the bottom and I'll get another flush. So I'll take you down the garden. I'll show you some other types of geranium that I've got. And my geraniums sort of just climb up amongst other plants. So this is another beautiful one. And you get them in all different colours and shades of the same colour. So again, you see I've got pops of allium in there. This is another fantastic true geranium, Johnson's Blue. Look at all the buds waiting to come out on there. And that's a nice big clump of Johnson's Blue. Pollinators love them. They love these geraniums. Now, a good plant to have beside Johnson's Blue is this one here, which is just about to come into flower. And this is called Loosestrife. And it's like a high-rise block of flats for pollinators. They expend very little energy. They just go from one level to the next, all the way up collecting pollen. And that is a beautiful yellow flower that comes out in June, and it looks gorgeous beside the Johnson's Blue. Again, a cottage garden plant that is just so easy to look after. And then beside, or in amongst the Loosestrife there, this plant here, I can't recommend this one highly enough, and this is called Alstroemeria, and it comes in all different colours. So that looks sort of pinks and reds. This one, I've just planted this year. I got a clump given to me off my daughter's neighbour. That's deep red, that's lovely. And then this one at the back, if you can see, is sort of apricot colour. And then, so if you got that and pop that in your border, again, I'll come back to it later in the year and tell you how to look after that, but really low maintenance, but really spectacular show. So what's that? We've got Loosestrife, Alstroemeria, different types of geranium. So I've got some more of that Johnson's Blue in there. Everywhere you look, it's full of bees. Beautiful. Now this plant here is a perennial plant. This is Centuria. And that is so easy to have in your garden. So low maintenance. These are the ones that have gone over there. And when he's all finished flowering, I just cut him right the way back down to the bottom so he's all nice and neat. And with a lot of these plants, you might get a second flush. So there are lots of plants in my garden that I would say I wouldn't be without. They're so easy, they're so low maintenance, but these are the ones that I would recommend you get if you want to pop some colour into your borders in June. That's another true geranium. And don't get these mixed up with the geraniums that you see on people's sort of windowsills and things, sort of the Mediterranean looking, what we call it geraniums, but they're really pelargoniums. Yes, this is a pelargonium. So you can grow those outside, but they're not hardy, not here in the northeast of England. So you see these on people's conservatory windowsills, kitchen windowsills, and then outside in the summer. So do not buy those, put them in your cottage garden border, and then think that they'll come back next year, because you'll probably lose them. The true geranium, they'll be in garden centres now, and they're very, very easy to grow. What else have I got? Oh, that's another beautiful Dutch iris. You see they come in different colours. That's a beautiful yellow one that's fallen over. He's white and yellow and he's pure yellow. So, oh, there's some more Allium. Just a little cluster. I've obviously bought a packet and then put the whole packet in there. I like to sort of plant in 5s or 7s in odd numbers. I leave the Allium standing because I like the structure. The seed heads are lovely. And then I've had a patch of Allium there as well. They've been all over the garden. And they're really, really reasonable. There's a lovely Aquilegia, that lovely pink one. And again, when he's all finished, he looks lovely in amongst that heuchera, doesn't he? When he's finished, I'll just cut him down to, say, there and leave the crown of pretty leaves, or I can cut him right the way down to the bottom and he would grow a new patch of leaves. So this is another Aquilegia that I have. This is just in the display that I have outside my garage. So this Aquilegia is very pretty. I hope you can see the colours okay. So apricot petals with a yellow centre. And then even in this display, I've got Alchemilla Mollis there. These are wallflowers. This is a white one, but I've had them in all different colours. They're one of the first plants to come up in the spring, and yet, so March, and yet here we are, June. This has had flowers, all these little spiky bits here up the stem. They've all been flowers, so you can imagine what that's looked like. So yes, you can buy wallflower seeds and sprinkle them or grow them indoors on your windowsill, or you can buy, this plant was bought for me just about to flower. So he was planted in there in the white garden. So wallflowers are another really easy one. When he's finished flowering, I will cut the stems of the flowers back and leave that bushy growth at the bottom, so you get a nice little mound there. And some people treat wallflowers as an annual. They just let it flower and then they pull the whole plant out. And that might be because they don't like a plant in their border that isn't flowering any longer, or they haven't got room for it. But I get 2 or 3 years out of my wallflowers before they stop flowering. As I say, I'll cut him back down to there, and then next year he will flower and he'll be even bigger next year, and then the same will happen the following year. Right, so the last plant on my list, and I will list them all and put the names up as I talked about them, is this plant here, which I'll look up the botanical name, but I know it as London Pride, and that's the foliage of it there. So easy. When the flowers have finished, you just cut them off down at the rosette, and then you're left with a beautiful ground cover leaf. So that's really easy. And all gardeners have their own way of creating a look, but this is how I create a sort of cottage garden effect. If you are the type of gardener who loves to see soil around each individual plant, you're going to hate this. But yeah, there's just a multitude of plants in there. I'm not going to name them because although you might love them, a lot of them I've had to grow from seed, but they're not in flower at the moment. So if you come back next month, I'll show you which plants are flowering then in July. And so if you've enjoyed this video, and you are thinking of getting any of the plants that I've mentioned, then if you do follow the videos throughout the year, you will see what I do with these plants. So say with the Valerian, you'll see what I do with that Valerian next month when the flowers faded. I'll show you how I cut it back, and then the next month I'll show you it again when it's reflowered. So yes, I guarantee just buy as many plants as you can from this list, or if you've got a gardener in the family, just ask them, oh, have you got any of whatever? And I bet you they have, and they'll give you a clump, and that's how you get started. So it's very exciting, it's great fun, it doesn't have to cost you a fortune. If you really have no budget for your garden, just wait until the autumn and then have a look at what people have got in their street. Most gardeners do a lot of cutting back in the autumn, and if you say, oh, I love that, they'll probably give you a clump then. So as always, thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you next time. Bye.